What's going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with the final champion for the login rewards. We're talking about Ghrush the Mangler in this awesome champion spotlight video. He's the day 240 daily login reward, so let's get right into it. So here we have an Ogryn Tribe's defense-based epic champion. And I think, in my personal opinion, this is the best login reward out of all three of these champions that I've now covered so far. Really quickly going over his skills, we have an A1 that places a leech, which is cool, and also places before, so this is safe against a weak affinity, which is the key thing to notice, because as you can see from the text here, it says has a 50% chance of placing the debuff, goes all the way up to 50, 60, 70, 75% chance, but it places this debuff before attacking, which means that there is no penalty for weak affinity when trying to apply this buff if you want to use it to your advantage, because this is going to be crucial, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Moving on to his A2, he attacks all enemies, has a 60% chance of placing decreased attack or a 30% decreased crit damage for 2 turns. This goes up to a 100% chance when booked, as well as a 4-turn cooldown from the original 5-turn cooldown. Moving on to his final skill, his A3 attacks all enemies, places a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns, places an additional 7.5% continuous heal buff on all allies for 1 turn if at least one enemy is hit with a critical hit. So basically from here, you build them with 100% crit rate and you are in the clear with adding that additional 7.5% continuous heal buff on all of your allies. This is originally a 6-turn cooldown, but once fully booked, this goes down to a 4-turn cooldown, and I'm pretty sure by now you can see where he's really going to shine in this game just off of reading his abilities. Moving on to the aura, we have defense and faction crips by 30%. Now really quickly showing you how I geared this champion. He's got 37,000 health, 4,700 defense, 174 speed, 97 crit rate, 202 crit damage, and 245 accuracy. I did elect to go with the accuracy because I want to try him out in clan boss first, since this build is primarily going to be specifically for progression in dungeons as well as clan boss. There is going to be a condition when we get into dungeons, but since I'm going to be talking about clan boss first, let's stick with that. So as mentioned before, I did go with accuracy because that leech is going to be vital in making sure I don't have to use lifesteal gear on any other champions. Now, going over his masteries, I did the typical offense and defense tree for Ultra Nightmare. I didn't really speed tune any of these champions, so I'm kind of going in blindly, so we're going to see what we get out of this. Now the champions I'm going to be using, as we can see here on the screen, are going to be Alton for that leader aura, Valkyrie, Dracomorph, Ghrush, and Whirlim Frostgang. As mentioned before, the speeds are kind of all over the place. I'm pretty sure Draco's 230, Whirlim's like 160, Valkyrie's 170. We already know what Ghrush is, and Alton, I believe he's in the 190s, so I'm not really sure how this is going to go, but it is going to show the point of what this champion can do for you once these login rewards are ready. So we're going to start with defense down and weaken on the boss here. We're going to get that defense up. And so as mentioned before, Valkyrie is a bit slower, so we're going to hold off on that counter attack. And let's go ahead and use... Alright, let's see what this A2 looks like, if there's any special animation. So here we go. It kind of looks like molten splinters falling from the sky, so that's kind of cool. We're going to go ahead and use this increased crit damage on anybody, because why not? Let's poison the boss. Go for that attack down. And once again, we are going to hold off on Valkyrie. Let's use, you know what, let's put the continuous heal buff on everybody. So let's hit him with the A3 there. So he actually is doing decent damage, 57,000 damage. Got a defense down on weekend is pretty high, especially when we see Dracomorph in full damage here doing 61,000. You guys can probably guess what I'm thinking about doing already. We should be building him in full damage. Now that we have that attack down, let's see who gets stunned. Okay, of course Valkyrie gets stunned. That's pretty much going to mess everything up here. We did see the leech debuff go on to the boss there, which is cool. I hit him with that A1 again, and so he's doing 102,000 from that A1, which is really cool to see. So he has a lot of damage potential, and I'm actually really excited to get out of the clan boss and pretty much put him in my best damage gear and see what he can do, because you guys know that's what I'm about. So I'm going to hit auto here. I don't really care about speed tuning this, so let's kind of see what the flow of this clan boss team is going to look like. So Ghrush is actually doing a lot more damage than I anticipated, especially since I didn't give him full damage gear. He simply has 99% crit rate, I think 200% crit damage, and a decent amount of accuracy and defense as well. So I really am interested to see what this team composition can bring to the table. Since none of this is speed tuned, I'm going to be looking at the final damage, especially from Ghrush, because once again, I am actually really surprised that he's doing as much damage as he's showing here, especially from the counter attack. And of course, Vrosking, everyone knows he hits extremely hard as well. So this is going to be very interesting. He definitely brings a lot of value being that defense-based champion. He's kind of like a Bad L in the sense where he is applying the continuous heal, and since he does have that crit rate, he has the bonus of applying not only 2 like Bad L, but 3 forms of continuous heal on your allies, further enforcing the fact that your champions do not need lifesteal. So this is going to prove to be a very strong clan boss champion, regardless of where you are in the game. I expect to see lots of 2-key Ultra Nightmare teams with this champion in it. I expect to see him in, I mean, realistically, he should be in most of the early game accounts. Well, I guess no one's really early game at 240 days, but wherever you are at 240 days, there's probably not going to be a case where you're not going to have to use this champion at all. He is going to be very strong in some aspect of this game. Hopefully by the time you're done watching this video, you've seen what I've done with the champion. You make up your mind on how this can help you when the time comes and we do hit that 240 day mark. So you're absolutely prepared on how you're going to use this champion, how you're going to maximize him to his potential to help you out the most. So it does look like, based on how this team is tuned, he is taking the stun, so his damage is definitely going to be hindered from that fact. So what I'm going to do now is I'm pretty much going to fast forward this, talk to you guys again at the end of this run, and we are going to go over the recap, see what kind of damage, and kind of think in your head, who do you think is going to do the most damage? Obviously it's going to be Dracomorph, but I'm more talking about from the defense champions. We have Vrosking, who everyone knows hits extremely hard, Alton, who is also an incredible damage dealer. So, I mean, once again, right there, Vrosking just crit for 169,000 on that A1, so he definitely does do more damage than Ghrush the Mangler. However, Whirlim is a legendary, Ghrush is simply an epic, so there may be something there. Also, I believe Ghrush does have a little bit lower crit damage than Whirlim does. However, Whirlim definitely has lower defense than Ghrush. So this is going to be interesting, and I will see you at that recap. Alright guys, so here's the final recap. We did 25.44 million damage in an Ultra Nightmare key. Alton doing 5.2, Draco 8.1, Valkyrie 2.8, Ghrush the Mangler 3.6, and Vrosking 5.4 million. So Ghrush definitely has a ton of potential, especially since he was tanking those stuns for the majority of the fight. They actually gave this epic something to kind of compensate that you cannot see from the basic skills that this champion has, on top of being such a good support role champion. So building crit rate, crit damage is going to be very important for this champion into the end difficulties of the clan boss, which are Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare. So now what we're going to do, now that we know this information, is let's build Ghrush the Mangler to do full damage, take him for a spin in a dungeon, and see what kind of monster this guy actually is. So since Ghrush is a green affinity champion, we cannot test this out in the dragon dungeon, but we can go ahead and hit to Ice Golem 20 so we can see how hard this guy can hit. I did change his gear, and I did change his masteries to be more damage dealing oriented, which can definitely work in the right situation since his continuous heal is not based on accuracy. So if you want to build him for damage, since he is a defense based champion, this can definitely be a viable strategy. So we had Vrosking there doing 70 to 90,000 damage on his AoE. Let's test out Ghrush's, I guess we'll go with the A3 first to see how hard we can hit these champions. So 124 to 140,000, not terrible. So there's definitely a lot there. So now that we tested his A3 out, let's go ahead and test out that A2 ability, see how hard the A2 can hit, and then we'll finally go back to the A1. The A1's probably not going to hit as hard as the others, but still, he is showing that he can be a solid damage dealing champion. So here is his A2. Now let's see what we can get. We'll put this on 1x speed. 116 to 70,000 if it doesn't proc with the Helm Smasher. So not terrible. Once again, since he's a support champion and provides the continuous heal, he has lots of utility in a dungeon environment. Now we'll get to see, okay, so that was his A3 there with no defense down and weaken. So actually, we're going to see what his A1 can actually do against these champions. Thankfully, the reflect damage is blocked, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's take out this random guy here. Now let's see what his A1 does against a champion with defense down and weaken. He does have defense up as well. He is only missing the increased crit damage from Whirlim Frostking. So 108,000 damage. That's kind of a lot for an A1, especially since Helm Smasher did not proc. So as I already mentioned, he has a ton of potential in dungeons if you elect not to gear him with accuracy for that decreased crit damage, which in my opinion probably isn't needed in a dungeon environment, but I'm going to go over that momentarily. Alright guys, so now that I showed you how he does in a clan boss team, even though it wasn't that ideal because I didn't speed tune the champions, he has a lot of potential in the clan boss. He can be an awesome damage dealing champion in dungeons, but one thing I want to talk about is progression versus endgame clearing content. So if you're in progression, you're probably going to give him some accuracy, so he's applying that leech debuff on targets. Not so much for the trash waves, while that will help. Mostly for the bosses in the dungeons, it's going to give your team that extra sustain. Make it so they don't need lifesteal gear as long as they can get through the trash waves in each dungeon. Now, the other thing that's kind of important that, yes, it requires accuracy. The fact that it's decreased attack or decreased crit damage, there's a rather significant value drop off there since it can be either or. If it was always decreased attack, he might have been too strong as an epic. I do think this is an awesome login reward champion, but I think they should have just made it not 100% chance and left it as attack only. So the fact that it's decreased attack or decreased crit damage definitely does lose a lot of value. So another possibility you can do, and this also applies if you want to use them in an endgame scenario, don't build them with any accuracy, just forget about the leech, forget about decreased attack, decreased crit damage, and focus your aim on this A3 ability. Build him for damage dealing. We just saw what he can do. He can definitely help clear waves a lot faster than any other support that I've seen so far, except for maybe Whirlim Frostking. And possibly place this guy in something like Relentless Gear to make sure this A3 is constantly coming up and proccing very often. This continuous heal, especially since he's always going to be critting, is going to have tons of value for you and your team when you're progressing. So I mean, I would have to say overall this is probably one of the better epics that is in this game right now. So hopefully you are looking forward to getting this guy, or if you already pulled him, you can take this information to help you progress even further into this game than you already are. Now, the last thing I didn't talk about is Faction Wars. Obviously, this guy is going to be borderline god tier in Faction Wars. He is from the Ogryn faction. They don't have an amazing healer. They do have healers, but none quite as good as this guy, especially for the fact that he provides that AoE damage dealing as well. So he's going to be very huge, and the fact that every player gets him, it's going to kind of increase the value of that and make it a lot easier for everyone to complete this faction all the way to stage 21. Another place I didn't talk about is Arena. You can definitely use him in Arena, probably not as an AoE damage dealer. If you wanted to use him in something like Immunity Gear, his A3 definitely has lots of potential since he's applying that continuous heal onto everyone, giving them sustain, but he's also dealing damage to everyone. Now the decreased attack and decreased crit damage can actually have benefit if decreased crit damage does apply on your enemies in the arena, making sure that their nuke champion isn't one-shotting you. So this could actually be the difference. So as always, thank you for watching, guys. Let me know what you guys think about this champion. Do you agree with my point that this is the strongest login reward of all three, including the legendary? I personally do. I'm looking for your feedback. Where do you plan to use this guy when you get him on that day 240? As always, if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss my next video, and I will see you all in the next upload.